Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the show. Man, if you are lucky enough to be tuned in today, even if you're lucky enough to catch this later when I post it up as a podcast, this is going to be one of the best shows that you've listened to. That's a promise. I have Julie Rowe on the telephone with me. Julie, thank you so much for joining me on the HD radio show today. Well, I've been excited to talk to you for some time, and I'm gonna go into the Wayback Machine here for just a few minutes. Longtime listeners of mine might remember a long time ago, 12, 13 years ago, I had a very wonderful lady by the name of Sarah Monet come on my show, and she discussed a near-death experience that she had and some things that she learned as a result of that experience. Very profound, some very life-changing things that took place. And Julie has likewise had a near-death experience that revealed some things to her that were very comforting and reassuring, and also some things which might be handy to know about events and things that are coming up that are facing those of us here in mortal existence. And Julie, before I go any further, I want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself, because I want people to understand that the conversation you and I are about to have, you did not send me a list of suggested questions. I did not send you a list of questions I would like to ask. I'm simply going to follow my heart and hopefully learn more from what you experienced. But what would you want people to know about you before we even start this conversation?
I just want to thank you for having me on. Before we get started, I just need to make it really clear that I am, although before we connected on and I was talking to you, we had a clear line, I do not have a clear line right now. And so I need to ask for some additional help from those that could clear out the lines for us so that we don't have any interference on this. And just thank everyone for tuning in wherever you are or wherever you may be if you decide to listen to this podcast in the future. My understanding right now is that this interview I'm having with you, Bryan, is the last opportunity I have to essentially publicly testify and witness of our Savior Jesus Christ, testify of his plan, and warn many of our brothers and sisters that there is a very imminent earthquake on the Wasatch Front. What I've been shown and told is this is my last opportunity to do a live interview before that earthquake is going to happen. And then after that earthquake happens, which is happening very soon, then I'm going to get hit by a whirlwind of media. And so I just wanted to thank you for the timeliness of this interview and for the Lord's direction and orchestration in this. I know without a doubt that he is real and he's orchestrating not only me being able to facilitate and share the story that I have of my experiences, but also so many others. And I see thousands of people coming forward in the future, witnessing and testifying of their own NDEs, dreams, visions, and other personal revelations similar to mine.
Okay, so now folks who are listening are going, I think I understand why Bryan said this is going to be a show to remember. Julie, let's start with, let's begin with your near-death experience. Tell us a little bit about the circumstances that led up to it, and then whatever you feel is most important to share that you learned as a result of it.
Okay. So hard to sum that up, right? We don't have a lot of time. I could go on for days. I could honestly write volumes and volumes on just experiences I had in the hospital and on the other side. I was in a weakened state, was dealing with quite a few different health issues at the time, did not know clearly what they were, had different symptoms that I outlined in a couple of different books, and this most recent book, From Tragedy to Destiny. But don't share everything in there health-related, quite honestly, Bryan, because I don't think people would believe me if they heard what I really was experiencing at the time and what I've experienced since. Not to take away from the experience and the blessings that I've been able to have as a result of those trials, but essentially when I went to the hospital, I was having a series of symptoms that I outline in the books, and I won't go into all that because my mind will get distracted and start listing off all these different scenarios. I was admitted to the emergency room, then into the hospital, and I was there for initially just under a week. the first time. A month later, I was back in the hospital for 2 nights and 3 days at one hospital, and then they sent me back to the original hospital I'd been at where they had the prior records, and I spent another 5 days there. I don't talk about that second and third experience I had in the book, but I do talk about the first one. And a couple years ago when I went public with my story, I had several people asking of what I was shown and experienced, how much do I write about in my book? I took that question to the Lord, and the answer that came back was less than 2%, to give people a perspective. And so just because we experience things, however they come to us, dreams, visions, NDEs, all of the above, or any kind of any personal revelation or sacred information does not mean that we share that publicly. I want to be very clear that the Lord does give dates sometimes when he needs us to know them. That doesn't mean that we share them, and yet I have been given permission to be very bold today to let you know that we have some very imminent things coming upon us within a matter of days. And it's a very overwhelming message, not just for me, but I think everyone. It's a divisive message because it's a sifting message. And there's a lot of reasons that were explained to me in September of 2004 when I had my initial NDE, and have since been explained to me in other NDE experiences I've had and some dreams and visions and personal revelation as I've gone about the last over a decade now of trying to understand what in the world it was and where in the world I was when it happened.
Julie, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a quick question about your NDE? One of the common things that I have heard among people who have experienced NDEs is that if they come back with an absolute loss of fear concerning death. And I'm just curious if that was your experience. You know, for most people, and this is myself included, I've never seen the other side. I do believe there's a spiritual reality there. I haven't seen it. But the people who I have spoken to and the accounts I've read of NDEs, it seems like to a person, that's no longer a question. The fear is gone.
Right. I have absolutely zero fear of dying. In fact, there have been days, quite honestly, I wished I could. And that's not uncommon either for people who've experienced that. The place that we go to when we leave this earth is a realm, multiple realms, but a realm that is so exquisite, so beautiful, so peaceful, and so loving that there is no fear there for me. In fact, I am forever and always grateful for the Lord's plan that we get to come to mortality, but I long for home. And there is a homesickness there that I had even before I had my NDE that I didn't necessarily recognize maybe fully. But since then, it has been a daily battle for me to essentially want to remain on the earth as far as not having any kind of will to die so much. Although I've gone through that, it's more of the just knowing how good it is on the other side. And not that it's not good on earth, right?
Right.
But it's so beautiful. And there really needs to be no fear there. The adversary is a fearmonger, and that's what they do. And much of that is because Satan and those that follow him can never have what I saw.
Okay, Julie, I got to jump in here because we've got to break away very quickly. Julie Rowe is my guest. When we come back, we're going to talk about what she saw concerning specifically an earthquake. And it's something that you'll want to pay very close attention to. We'll be back right after this. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the HD Radio Show. My guest today is Julie Rowe. She's the author of a number of books, and we're talking about a very timely topic, and it has to do with things that she learned during a near-death experience some time ago. About, what was it, 2004, Julie? Is that when your experience took place?
Yes, September 28th and 29th of 2004. I was on the other side for a little over about 2.5 days, basically. And
you mentioned that among the things that you saw, one of the events that was shown to you was an earthquake that would affect the Wasatch Front particularly. Can we talk about that?
Right. I actually saw numerous earthquakes in Utah, Idaho area, but particularly what I refer to, because they've told me this on the other side, the Wasatch Wakeup earthquake, which for a long time, the veil's very thin for me, so those on the other side, Minister Angels, and those are some of my guardian angels have been letting me know that earthquake was soon. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that message changed to imminent. And so we've gone from soon to imminent. Now, obviously, that's relative in the Lord's time, right?
Sure.
He doesn't keep time the same way you hear linearly, but what I see is that is literally imminent, as in could be any day. And it's very surreal to be at this point. A lot of people will say, hey, we made it through the big one, when in fact that's not true. This is literally a wake-up call early in the morning. I see it. I posted some on my blog. I was finally given permission from the Spirit a couple days ago, about last week, to post more details. If you go to julieroweprepare.com, you can see there's several things posted there, but one is titled, probably 2 weeks ago, the Wasatch Wakeup. What is the Wasatch Wakeup? So there's one called the Wasatch Wakeup, and then a follow-up about 5 or 7 days later that says, what is the Wasatch Wakeup? And I encourage anybody listening now or later to go and listen to that and see what I was able to say. I was given those words, and it was hard. I wanted to say more, but I was not given permission from the Spirit to do that. So that will be of help. I encourage anybody in Utah, especially some in Idaho, but Utah especially on that Wasatch, if you've got any kind of mirrors or things above your bed or things that if you're asleep at 4:35 in the morning and you were to be awakened with some shaking, that you would minimize anything that might fall and bump you in the head or something. So.
What were some of the things that you observed as in terms of the amount of damage? I mean, if this is a wake up, I'm guessing that this would not be an all out, off the charts kind of quake.
Right. So what I see is, depending on where you are, the epicenter and what's being reported, around a 6.6 to a 7. The epicenter being in Salt Lake, centralized at the U of U and the hospital up there. And then as it goes out from there and different shifting on the different fault lines, anywhere from a 5.5 to 5.6 right directly on the Wasatch. You go into San Pete, up the Rexburg area, Cache Valley, and down to where you are, and you're going to feel that because, the tremors would be lighter. But if you get a 3.5, 4, 4.5, you're still going to feel that pretty well compared to what you're used to. Mm-hmm.
When you talk about a wake-up, now there are, literal wake-ups, like I'm awake now in bed and wondering why the room is shaking. But there's also, I'm sure there's more of a figurative wake-up aspect to this as well. What are people needing to wake up to as a result of this quake?
The State of the Union, the state of our Constitution and the land of the free. That is no longer are we really a free people. And pretty soon here, by cunning designs of the adversary and those that work with him on this planet, they are very soon going to enact some of those plans that they've been planning for decades to enslave the American people in ways that are absolutely unimaginable. Everything from so-called debtors' prisons to different types of encampments and elimination and things that we see similar to past wars on this earth, and then some. And so this is a wake-up call for those on the Wasatch and really worldwide, but especially those of the LDS faith and others on that Wasatch front. The Lord loves all of his children, and he will do everything he can to wake us up, to get us to repent and come back to him. And then it's just time for a cleansing. People don't like to hear that, but that's the truth, Brian. The earth is absolutely sick and sad with the amount of toxins, pollutions, and sadness and wickedness that's been perpetrated upon this earth. And it's time to be cleansed. It's
timely because we were having quite a conversation yesterday on particularly the state of America, the corruption that is endemic within our highest leadership, and the fact that the people right now are pretty much separated from any type of meaningful control over those who say that they represent us. And one of the questions that came up was, well, so what are we supposed to do? What's got to happen here? And my response is, well, we're going to have to be humbled. And ultimately, I believe a divine intervention of some sort is going to have to take place, but that won't come until we have been humbled enough to ask for it and to merit it.
I agree with you 100%. The Lord will have a humble people, and either we can humble ourselves or we will be humbled. And what I see is a combination of both, depending on where we are in that spectrum. Every knee will bow, and within about a decade, this world's going to look very different from how it looks right now. And I'm looking forward to when we get through the tribulations that we are entering into here, we get to the other side, and we have beautiful new earth and a greater tomorrow. That's the title of my first book, is A Greater Tomorrow. The second one, The Time Is Now. And the most recent one, From Tragedy to Destiny, outlines the tragedy of what's happened upon this planet, specifically the United States, and us not following the Constitution and allowing our freedom to be stripped from us due to our wicked choices and to the wicked choices of other people, but being able to take our lives back, literally, and accept accountability where we need to be accountable and repent. Nobody likes that word when they know they need to repent, but it truly is a gift the Lord's giving us, a chance to wake up and get our lives in order, because if you read in the book of Revelations and other books of Scripture, you know, we're looking at a good 2/3 of the earth passing to the other side in the near future. And that's staggering. That means there's not a single person on this planet who will not lose a loved one.
Wow.
To death. Myself included. I have been shown I am losing a large majority of friends and family to other missions. And it's painful. Even knowing what I know, it's painful. But what I do know and testify of is that premortally, we accepted this plan and we helped design our individual plan. And that gives me comfort when I think about the choice I made in the last few years to go public with my story and people criticizing that and falsely accusing or calling me crazy or whatever, Bryan. I own it. And I want to make that clear on the record. I own it 100%. And I know I'm not crazy. In fact, I know that it comes from being in tune. And the more in tune we are with the love of our Father in heaven, the easier this gets for us. It doesn't have to be as hard as we make it.
You know, you've already partially answered the next question I wanted to ask you, which was when you talk about things like this, when you share this information, and those just joining us need to understand, first of all, you were told don't share this until the appropriate time. But once you share it, right, you pay a price for sounding what I'm understanding is a warning voice, an encouragement to people to get it together and get focused on what really matters. Tell us a little bit about the price that you currently pay for having spoken about this. You'd mentioned that there's been a lot of media activity and opposition. Mm-hmm. Isn't it great being famous? Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
Some have said that's why I'm doing this, but apparently they haven't read the hit pieces online, because anybody that wants to be labeled crazy in that job and a myriad of other names that have come my way, truthfully, that's the least of my worries, Bryan. If people could see what I see on both sides of the veil, they would understand why I'm doing this. Because when you have a face-to-face with the guy that leads this opposition, it's a little bit more motivating to keep going and getting the message out, because you realize that the threat is real and the threat is imminent. And who in the world cares that a 43-year-old middle-aged woman in the Midwest is telling somebody that she went and saw heaven? Who cares, right? What's the big threat? Well, I am not the threat. It's the truth that is the threat to the dark side. And it always has been and always will be. And I witness and I testify that this is real. And anybody on either side of the veil that's telling you or anybody else otherwise, they're lying to you. I have seen it with my own eyes. I see it regularly with my own eyes, the whole spectrum, the light and the dark. When you see good things, you can't choose what you see, right? If you have certain spiritual gifts, you take them as it was designed in your plan. And as I speak for myself that way, that's a very big burden that I've carried, and others who experience this know exactly firsthand what I'm talking about.
Okay, hold that thought. We've got to take a quick break. Julie Rowe is my guest. We will be back to chat some more with her again. If you just joined the conversation, you're going, oh, I missed the first part, not to worry. We will have a podcast posted up later this afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the HD Radio Show. My guest by telephone is Julie Rowe, and we are talking about the Wasatch Wakeup. If you're not familiar with it, hang on. You'll catch on quickly. Julie, I want to make something very clear, or give you the opportunity, actually, to make something very clear here. You do not speak for the leadership of the LDS Church, correct?
Right. I don't speak for the LDS Church or any other church or denomination or political affiliation. I am completely independent in my message of my story, sharing my experience. And that's what this message is for. It's for all of the Lord's children of every faith and denomination and any believer or non-believer. I am to witness and testify of Christ. I'm to share my witness in my warning voice. And although I am LDS, I'm active LDS, our prophets and apostles are true prophets and apostles for the LDS Church, and they have stewardship and lead and guide the church. I am an additional witness as evidence when you study in all the books of Scripture, and I encourage people to go look at the patterns established, everything from Lehi leaving Jerusalem when Jeremiah was the prophet, to Samuel the Lamanite, to, there's so many, and even many of the women who were given gifts of the Spirit to witness and testify. In the Book of Mormon, the story of Lamoni and Alma the Younger, and they were not originally, they were not prophets and apostles in the sense that we have our leaders of the church today. They were separate additional witnesses of Christ and his plan.
Now, I know there have been questions that have arisen since you released your first book and since you have started talking publicly about this, the church has slapped a gag order on her, or she's been told not to talk about these things. What is your status? Have you been disciplined? Have you been gagged?
Nope. The only person that's ever tried to gag me is Satan.
Which is understandable, given your subject matter.
And the people that work with him on this side of the veil or the other. There's been plenty. I've had plenty of threats made on my life, more than once. Honestly, people wouldn't believe it because they'd think I was trying to be dramatic. So I'm not even going to. I'm not going to bear testimony of him. I'll just say, I have not ever. I am in good standing. In fact, I don't think it's okay for people to use their religion or their so-called worthiness to try to couch any kind of message, because that's not how the Lord does it. So I don't want to get into that so much, other than to state that is a false accusation and a lie, and that is coming from the adversary and those that work with him to try to make people afraid to read my books or to listen to the radio show or whatever. We look at the fruits of the individual or the organization to see if they're of the light or the dark, and to what degree of light or dark. And just because we're afraid of a message doesn't mean that it's the wrong message. It could be that, fear comes from Satan, so maybe it's that it's true, and they're making us afraid because they don't want us to wake up and realize that it's true, because then we're on to them. And, truth can be painful, right? When we wake up, you look at the story of the Garden of Eden, and the beauty that's come from that, but the pain that was initiated when their eyes were uncovered and their eyes were opened after the fall. And, there's been all kinds of false accusations, and Bryan, there's going to be more, and I'm not to spend my time and energy chasing after all the lies and the liars and the false accusers, because you don't see other people who are trying to send a message of light doing that. That's exactly what the adversary wants, is for me to waste all my time and energy doing that, so I can't do the good things I'm supposed to be doing.
No, you just kind of have to take the shots and keep on telling the truth, right?
I signed up for it, and I have very clear vision and memory of not only agreeing to it, but helping design the plan and the role I would play. And I literally have a memory, and I've been shown it more than once, of jumping up and down and practically begging the Lord for the opportunity to do this, and he took me up on it.
So again, for those who may just be joining us, we're talking about a wake-up quake that is imminent. And could I press you for some more details? Is that something you would feel comfortable discussing?
Sure.
Could we talk about more of what you were shown?
Yes, and anything I can't answer, and meaning I don't know it, I'll let you know if I don't know it.
Okay.
Anything I can't answer because the Spirit's telling me that it's not a smart idea to share it, either for my personal safety or protection or someone else's, then I'll just let you know that. And otherwise, I will answer as directed by the Spirit. I've been accused of sidestepping conversations and questions, and those that are in tune will know why and when and where and how what needs to be said, and obviously for my personal safety and my family, I have to be cautious about what I share.
So what
go for it.
What did you see in terms of the Wasatch Wakeup? You'd mentioned, I think, that it occurs early in the morning.
Yes, I see a full sunny day with relatively warm weather, actually a little bit unseasonably warm, and then kind of a late night, middle of the night, last-minute cold front coming in where they don't even really give a warning because, if it's 3 in the morning, people are asleep, and a little bit of snow, and I see wet snow so that the morning that people are awakened when the sun comes up after the aftershock, on that initial shake about 6:30, and people start coming outside in their robes and pajamas and kind of freaked out, and they look to survey the damage in their areas, homes, and neighborhoods. I see green grass, like a fresh spring green grass. The roads are wet. There's been no plowing. It's wet roads, and the grass is wet, not from frost. It's wet from melting snow and rain, and then small patches of melting snow with the outside of the snow being water and wet. Very, very wet snow, barely turned to snow. Most of it's rain, and I don't even remember seeing sleet. It's not icy like that so much. And then there's, of course, aftershocks and things like that. That's the initial wake-up. We're talking, not this year, but later on, an off-the-charts, 9, 9.5, 10 earthquake that'll come later. This one is literally a wake-up in the morning and aftershocks for a couple days initially, and then here and there throughout the next, year or so.
What kind of damage did you observe, if any?
A lot. I saw several people displaced, thousands of people displaced, several deaths, and a lot of injuries. Power outages anywhere from a few hours to 24 to 48, sometimes up to a couple weeks, depending on where people are located. I see damage at airports. I see damage at hospitals, campuses, both of elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as just about every college campus, and significant damage there in the Provo, Springville area as far as the campus. I think since I used to live there, I recognize those scenes a lot more, and it's significant to me and my life. And then that epicenter of the Salt Lake area where it kind of splinters out from there, University Hospital right there at the U of U. And so significant. And this is new information I've not been given permission to share previously, Bryan. Essentially, I was told to save it for this interview.
Wow. So it sounds like the damage and loss of life, while they are there, are not significant in the kind that when we hear of a quake in Iran or China or something that kills 40,000 people. But you talk about this being a wake up. Does this wake some people up? Does it push other people further into denial?
Yes, it's a sifting. And some people, whether they've heard of me or not or will hear of me, some will be friendlier to me and others will be more hostile. It will wake up those it's meant to wake up, and it will sift those it's supposed to sift. And that might seem harsh to people, but that is what, I'm not coming up with that on my own, Bryan. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm an all-inclusive person, and I would love for everybody to just live through this and get on to the greater today, greater tomorrow here on the planet. But if the Lord's plan is for someone to pass on or to go through a certain trial, then I am working on accepting that plan. Honestly, I've wrestled with it for a long time, and it's not my plan, it's God's. And when I made that decision a long time ago to support Him, that's my master. So I have to trust in His plan. There is no other choice for me. I trust in His plan because I look at the miracles in my own life and how many times He saved my life, both literally and figuratively, on a spiritual realm and a physical realm. And there is no other way for me. And really there's no other way for the rest of us, but we can make it harder than it has to be. And some of us have to learn the hard way. Yes, we do.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take a break here in just a moment. Julie Rowe is my guest, and we are talking about being prepared, and that can encompass a lot of territory. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Good afternoon, and welcome to the HD Radio Show. Hey, if you're just joining us, my guest is Julie Rowe. She's a wife, mother, and a woman who has had a near-death experience, and quite a remarkable one at that. And she has been sharing some of, not only some of the experiences that she had on the other side, but also some things that were shown to her pertaining to events that are yet to happen here. And one of them in particular, she says, is an earthquake that will be a wake-up, and it will be centered along the Wasatch Front. And Julie, are there other events that are worth mentioning, or should we focus on this one and make this the focus of our attention?
We'll make this the focus because this is the wake-up warning.
Okay.
But I do see, if you're talking just earthquakes, and I go into a little more detail on some of the other radio shows I've done on my website and others that I will do. Each one's unique, as you know, and then in the books. But I see, the Ring of Fire coming alive. Earthquakes all over the planet, more of like we've seen, but massive scale. And then eventually, both coasts and up in the Madrid fault line, essentially making an inland ocean or waterway up through Missouri going up to the Great Lakes. That's after a lot of other events. In the short term, I see a lot going on with elections, and I've addressed those in some other shows, and maybe after this earthquake, Bryan, you can have me back on and we'll go into more of that, because that'll be imminent after the earthquake.
I'll tell you, the next conversation you and I have is going to be an interesting one.
It will be, right? And
on the one hand, I'm looking forward to it. On the other hand, it's like, well, I guess I'll be brave. You had mentioned that this wake up earthquake is a sifting of sorts, and I just want to come back to this again, just so people will understand. You are not just portending doom and gloom and bad things are going to happen. You are talking about something happening as a result of God's love for all of his children, and a desire that they all open their eyes and start to focus on things that are of greater importance. What role does humility play in the lives of those who wake up?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is the story of Noah and boarding the ark. And in his day, for over 120 years, he was called crazy by those closest to him, near and far. And he had to endure it for 120 years. I just have to endure it for about 12, which is just kind of like the law of tithing, 10%. I don't know. So I'm grateful for his mission, along with Moses and some of the other prophets and apostles, and those that are not on the record in the scriptures that have not yet come forward that we will learn about later. Joan of Arc is one of my heroes, and she's a dear friend. So many people in history who played important roles in sifting and preparing and whatever it was that was necessary at that time. But in our day, we look at the days of Sodom and Gomorrah being significant, with the story of Lot. Look at the Tower of Babel. We're seeing some things now with related to Baal and to Moloch and the Satanists, and people need to pay attention to that. It won't be long before they start to spot the earth with some of their so-called temples. And the portals to both light and dark, as we look at the Lord's temples and places of worship and other places on the earth like land, where I see literally higher vibrations and stages of light and higher light. If you're talking basic science, I love science, right? The light can't be with dark, but the light dispels the dark. It literally chases it away. And what I see in a greater tomorrow is we go through this hard stuff in life, and then it's going to kind of, we're in transition, like a woman in travail. And if you're from a 1 to a 10, we're getting into the 6, 7s here. And pretty quickly, we're going to have a new earth. And I'm looking forward to that. I don't have exact time frames of when it's going to happen, but my understanding is it's a process, right? And having a greater tomorrow is that we elevate ourselves. We are better people, and the planet is a happier planet, a lighter planet, and on a scientific level is energized. And we're not just talking about going from, having renewable energy, but what I consider and have been shown to be pure energy and unlimited energy and resources. And we're going from an attitude of scarcity and a mentality of scarcity, and the ultimate scarcity when everything's kind of stripped of us from an EMP and other things for a while, to then the Lord taking that circuit break, right? When you have that blasted, and then he then is able to, from the ground up, take that same circuit and bring in additional and never-ending light, and it's terrific.
So we're down to about the last 2 minutes of the hour here. This is going to be decision time. Do you want to stay on a little bit longer, or have we covered
Sure.
the topics? Okay, I'm glad you'll stay on. One thing I want to talk about when we come back in the next hour, Julie, the motto on your website, right under your name, Julie Rowe, it says "Prepare now." And I'm a huge fan of preparedness, and I've actually gone kind of through the cycle of preparedness where, there was a time when preparedness to me meant buy all the guns and bullets you can and the survival gear, and I've since taken on a much more well-rounded approach to preparedness and understand there are different levels. There's physical preparedness, there is mental preparedness, there is spiritual preparedness. And I'm hoping in the next segment we could get you to comment a little bit about where our efforts might best be spent to prepare.
Okay, thank you. And I need to say, true preparedness can only come from putting our lives on the line for Christ, and He fills in the gaps. And when I see pantry closets, if people want to have those food and resources replenished, that can only come through the light. And I see that happening. The Lord can replenish our energy, our faith, our trust, and our resources as we allow Him and put our faith in Him. And I don't see any other way. The rest of it's a dead end. If we don't put our focus on Him, it's a dead end, whether in this life or the next.
Well, it sounds like you're much less of fear-based preparedness and much more of a positive, light-based preparedness.
I would hope so. We're all working on that, right?
Yes, we are.
I'd be lying if I didn't say that I haven't been afraid at the things I've seen coming, but I'm transitioning.
Okay, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We've got a breakaway here. Julie Rowe is my guest. She will rejoin me just after news at the top of the hour. Good afternoon and welcome to the HD Radio Show. If you're just joining us, I have Julie Rowe on the telephone with me. Julie is a wife and a mother, and, well, she's pretty much just an average human being, except she has a message that she is fearlessly and boldly sharing with our listening audience today. And, Julie, on the one hand, I have great admiration for you, mainly for the courage you have in sharing this message. I'm also not so jealous of you in the fact that it makes you a bit of a lightning rod for people who want to lash out and tear down. So I applaud you on both counts. Thanks for having the courage to speak up, and thanks for taking the hits for being willing to speak up.
Thank you. I have to tell you, Brian, when you said lightning rod, I have several images that come to my mind that I've been shown regarding this message and the books and the relief effort I'm working on and all kinds of things. And there's few. And again, I don't come up with these on my own. I can take no credit, but think fireworks, the lightning rod and fireworks. You're right there, Brian. I noticed your commercial, and I was like, I've also been told and shown it's going to spread like wildfire. I'm like, well, makes sense that Brian's the one doing this interview then. And dominoes. The dominoes are about to start falling, and the whirlwind. So when people think of those scenarios, right, in the literal sense, and then what's the figurative around that as far as what we're going to see happening here pretty soon?
I have felt, and I know a lot of other people are feeling, just, I don't know how to describe it. There is a sense in the air that this year is pivotal in many ways. And of course, the dominant story is, well, of course, because there's a presidential election, and that's a story, but it's not the real pivotal story. And there's so many things poised.
Yeah, this is an election like none other, in all the wrong ways. And I guess in the right ways, depending on who you're working for, right? Because what I see is when we get through this yucky stuff, several assassinations that are going to be made, attempted assassinations, and later on, full-scale martial law and things like that. What I see in the short term is very dark. What I see in the long term is extremely bright, brighter than we've ever had on this planet.
But above all, there is a wake-up call that is being sounded. You are one of those people who is counseling. Prepare now. And I want to ask you to expand a little bit upon that preparedness message. I'm sure you probably get this from people all the time, but they probably ask, Julie, how? How should I prepare?
Yeah.
How do you answer a question that could be answered so broadly?
Well, the standard answer is get on your knees and ask the true source, right? We talked about that at the break, Bryan, asking the source. My source is our Father in heaven and the Savior Jesus Christ, and that needs to be each of our source. But for those who don't know how to do that, well, it's a process. And the more we do that, the more we turn to him, then the more he knows we can handle and the more he trusts us with the information he gives us. And then those answers come more quickly and more clearly. And it's a process, and it's not an easy process, and it takes work, and it takes faith. And we have to have a belief that can turn into a faith that is an action word. And we can't just sit idly by wanting me or somebody else to give us a shortcut answer. Satan can talk in your ear all day long and give you the shortcut answer, and I guarantee you it's the wrong one.
Now, the message that you are sharing today is going to sound very familiar to people of faith. But you made something very clear to me before we went on the air, and that is you do not want people who have no particular religion, or who, for that matter, who aren't LDS or anything, to feel like they are being excluded, or to feel that, well, this only applies to people who go to church.
Right. This is a message for all of the Lord's children all over the planet. My relief organization and the stewardship I have there is the United States right now, although I see that expanding, within the next decade. But in the short term, I'm supposed to focus on the United States, and that's quite honestly more than I feel like I can handle right now. So they keep promising me that I'm going to have all the resources and people in place that have been prepared for more than a lifetime. So I'm encouraged by that. At a minimum, on a physical level, there are things all over the internet you need to be careful about what you read on preparation. But I would say very basics. If you see a consistent message of since we're talking about an earthquake, consistent basics of emergency prep, especially earthquake, is a flashlight and shoes, tennis shoes by your bed. And especially if it happens in the dark, which I see as a potential. And then a 72-hour kit, and making sure that you have a way that you have some clean water to drink if you can't get water for anywhere from 24 hours to 2 weeks. And several emergency prep sites recommend a minimum of 2 weeks water supply and a way to purify that water if it's contaminated or when it's contaminated. And then, a lot of people, they'll get food, but they don't know what to do with it, or they don't have the means to utilize it. And if you don't have water, what good is food, right? You're going to die without water before you die from starvation.
Right.
So the very, very basics. And as we are spiritually preparing, we will then be prompted to physically prepare. It's not a one-stop shop all for everybody. There's some basic measures we all take. But I live in the Midwest, and I'm not going to be on the Wasatch when this earthquake hit. And I've never lived through an earthquake. I've been in volcano situations, and I've been in hurricanes and tropical storms and near tornado situations, but I've never actually experienced an earthquake. I've seen them come in enough, and I've been guided, but it's a different deal when we are preparing in theory compared to when we're actually living it. And we do the best we can to prepare, and then our greatest learning is on the spot a lot of the time. And on that spot training, if you want to make sure you know what to do in an emergency, you make sure the channels of communication are clear from the source. And you're not listening to my voice or anybody else's. You're listening to the source, which is God the Father and His Son Jesus Christ. And this is not a message for any one faith. This is everybody, non-believer and believer alike. I see those who are not of any faith right now, many of which will be awakened and humbled to fulfill their life mission, whether it's of a certain official faith or not. And others down the road that are or have been affiliated with a certain denomination or faith and having a change of heart. And it goes both ways with people within and without certain faith. And political affiliations. What I see going forward in the future after we get through tribulations is the bridges. The bridges have been burned, and they are then rebuilt in both a literal and figurative sense of the word. And when the dam breaks loose, then there's a cleansing of living water, and we repair the bridges and we repair the dams, and that's where the healing comes. And I look forward to that. I know we have to live in the now, and we don't have to wait till tomorrow to have happiness and true joy. We can do it right now by putting our fear away and getting our closets cleaned out and getting right with the Lord. And then we know that no matter what happens to us, we are going to make it. It's going to be okay. We will be strong enough to accomplish whatever it is we need to do in our life for who we are and what we are meant to become. And what I see is we are all meant to become much more than any of us give credit.
And you mean that on a very individualized basis?
Yes, every single one. Yes.
I think
people living in the islands who have never ever heard of Christ at all, or any kind of official plan, to people living in the Middle East, to people living in China, to people living in Russia. You know, we're going to have the Chinese and Russians and a lot of other members of the UN take over this country for a while, or try to. They're not the true enemy. They're being vehicles of the guy who's orchestrating this, both on the land and on the other side of the veil.
Julie, can you stay with me for just one more segment? Can you stay till the bottom of the hour?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take a very quick break. Julie Rowe is my guest, and we'll be back right after this. Good afternoon, and welcome to the HD Radio Show. My guest by telephone is Julie Rowe, and this is going to be our last segment with Julie. If you're just joining the program, Julie has been talking about a near-death experience that she had that well, I don't even know how to begin to sum it up, but it showed you a lot of the realities, the spiritual realities that exist, but it also shed some light on events that are upcoming, and one of those events is an earthquake that Julie saw happening along the Wasatch Front. And Julie, when you say imminent, we're not talking the 50 years means imminent like geologists.
We're talking any day.
Wow.
Like soon, any day.
You know, and given the weather patterns, I mean, you described the kind of weather that you saw, and just the weather patterns that we have seen throughout the state here within just the last few days. Yeah, that's it's very interesting.
So a bright, sunshiny day, I see kind of full sun almost. A bright, sunshiny day, and a last-minute, unexpected cold front that comes through, bringing a little bit of snow. There's details on my website. I've just been able to give a few. I can't go into all of them. And we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, but JulieRowePrepare.com. If you can't remember my website, just type in Julie Rowe and recognize that the majority of what's on there right now are a lot of hit pieces. But if you go to Julie Rowe Prepare, you'll get the truth, and you'll get it from the source of my own mouth, and not from people that are so-called friends, family, or acquaintances who are claiming they know me or have other agendas.
Yeah, I have found that sometimes the experts on a given person or a given ideology or religion, the loudest ones are seldom the ones you would really want to talk to. For instance, if I wanted to know, hey, tell me the history of the Catholics, I wouldn't go to a Ku Klux Klansman.
Correct.
He'd have a lot to tell me, but it wouldn't necessarily reflect reality.
Right. And what I see after this earthquake and the whirlwind of media and frenzy that's going to come with my name being known for good or ill, depending on who you are, is some so-called friends that are going to claim some things that are not true. And then other friends that are going to come forward in my defense, whether that be in the media or on Facebook or elsewhere. And I want to thank those true friends in advance for what I see you doing for me. And for those who are going to struggle with that, I forgive you in advance.
Wow. So I'm going to throw this question at you. I know it's kind of a weird one, but I want to just get right to the heart of the matter so people can hear from your own mouth. What's in this for you? To speak this message, to write these books, to create a website, to be the voice of warning here. What's in it for Julie Rowe?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a layered answer. The first thing that came to my mind is people that have said I'm in it for the money. All the money I've made has gone to support my family to be able to relocate to a safe place after going public, or to pay for some bills for my husband taking a 50% pay cut to be able to do that, to buying supplies that are going to help survivors. So that's where my money's gone. And future money for the book and any funding that comes in for the Greater Tomorrow or relief organization, GTRF, which you can find the link at the bottom of my website, all of that is going toward preparations for what I see with the upcoming calamities. And it's going to feed many of the people who are listening to this show right now.
So that lavish jet set lifestyle that some may be envisioning is not exactly what you're doing.
Well, if I have to take a jet, it's not because I want to. It's because I got to get somewhere fast, and it's too dangerous for me to fly in a regular plane. And I will be buying that myself if I have to do it. It's not going to come out of somebody else's pocket that is accusing me of having an ulterior motive. I don't have plans to buy a jet. So if anybody happens to hear about that in the future, I never bought a jet.
Okay. And I'm being somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but...
I need to be honest, right? Because that's going to come back to bite me. And the reason I say it is because I have seen, essentially, that I will have some friends that that have promised to help me out if I need to get somewhere safely due to already how dangerous it is for me, but increasingly so next year, how dangerous it will be for me to travel. So I have nothing to hide, Bryan. I really don't. And people will see that more and more when I get in front of the camera for the first time, and that creates a whirlwind, and they get to see and they can look in my eyes. They'll realize, they can put those lie detectors in the body study, where they see, is she telling the truth? And I guarantee you I'll pass the test.
Wow. I want to come back for a minute to the Wasatch Wakeup, since this is, it's relevant to everybody within the sound of our voices. But did you see, or were you able to ascertain, of the people involved, the people, throughout the state of Utah and surrounding area, is there a percentage that you could put on the number that actually do wake up versus the ones that just kind of harden their hearts and dig in even deeper?
I haven't tried to put a percentage on this immediate earthquake wake up, but what I see is later on, when there are some invitations to gather or some other opportunities for people to go to places of safety, I see it coming in waves. And initially a very, very small percentage, like 0.1%, will actually go to places to start preparing, kind of like our relief organization is, because they know some stuff coming. And then they will be the ones that will kind of lead the way and help prepare places for others who will come as refugees. And I myself will one day be a refugee, and I know that. I've seen it, and I've already met all of the individuals who will be helping me escape from some very dangerous experiences. And so I thank them in advance, and one day when you see me, you remind me that I knew this,
okay,
no matter how hard it is. But I see great things because the Lord has a plan, and it's a transition plan, and we don't all transition at the same time, right?
Okay, that makes sense. What do you wish more people understood about themselves? I'm asking that I'm assuming from your vantage point. You have seen some things that a lot of people don't get to see. What do you wish more people understood that they might better understand themselves?
I appreciate that question. My hope is that I can, you asked what's in it for me. What's in it for me is that I love the Lord, I love my Father in heaven, and I love my brothers and sisters, and that means everybody on the planet. There are some people I don't care for, that I don't necessarily like, and I don't like what they're doing, but I'm working very hard to love them and to have charity. That's what's in it for me. And to be able to serve the Lord and to serve other people, to help them awaken to the reality of the situation of who they are as a son and daughter of God in the very literal sense of their divine origin, and to literally shake off and break the shackles and the binds that have tethered us and shackled us so that we can't see clearly our divine worth and our divine origin. And if people could come to the understanding, and I myself, as I am more awakened to that reality, it gives us the ultimate power and freedom, because we realize that we have the power to create just like our Father. We create our life. We create our life now, and we create our future. And that's what I see.
It sounds like some of the challenges that lie ahead that you were shown. Some would say, well, it's a punishment. This is, the fist of a vengeful God smashing those who have displeased him. From what you're describing, though, Julie, I hear something a little bit different. And you correct me. You correct me if I'm wrong here. It sounds to me like it is an opportunity for us not only to humble ourselves if we choose to, and to clarify our focus on what really matters, but also a chance to really learn to love our fellow man and stop focusing on all the things that right now artificially divide us.
Right. We're in this earth and we think death is something awful, physical death. It's not. It's a transition to another world and a better place. But this life that we have here is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to learn literally what we call the school of hard knocks, right? It's our opportunity to learn and to grow and to have our eyes opened, and it's a painful process. I would be lying if I didn't say that I often think I wish I could have the shortcut. Can't we just skip all this yucky stuff? Can't we just, go ahead and be exalted? Can't we just go ahead and be saved and go back to our heavenly home and get on with the good stuff, right? What I'm continually being reminded of is that spiritual pain is far more lasting and devastating than any kind of physical pain. And when we come to the realization that this is a continuum, that life isn't over when we pass the other side of the veil, that we continue on to other realms and other lives, and I'm not talking reincarnation, that's a false doctrine, but other glorious days ahead, that's when we begin to awaken to the reality of who we really are and what our potential is.
All right, Julie, we are...
And it's unlimited. It's unlimited. That's what I keep hearing. Unlimited, infinite atonement, unlimited potential.
I appreciate that we ended on a tone of hope, and I appreciate you sticking your neck out as you've done today. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you. Look forward to talking to you again soon. It's going to be good.
Our next interview is going to be a humdinger. I'm looking forward to it.